It being 6:03, I'm going to call the Finance Committee meeting to order. We'll take a roll call since we have some members online. Hal Pike here.
Oh, Marcia Meekins here.
Deborah Moran online. Here.
Michael, are you there?
I'm here, but I basically have no voice, so I'm gonna have to communicate by chat.
Okay. For now, I know you're there. So we've got our 5 members here. 4 members here. Derek, are you there? I don't see Derek, but in any case, we have 4 members. The first thing I'll do is introduce Marcia Meekins, a new Finance Committee member who joined as of today. She's been sworn in, so she's a full-fledged member. Welcome, Marcia.
Thank you.
Welcome.
The first item on the agenda always is any public comments. I see a couple of people from the public online. Does anybody have any comments they want to make before we get into the business of the meeting? Seeing none, I'll go on to the new business. The first item is the appointment to the Capital Planning Committee. Mike Coward has been our appointee there, but he's had to resign, so that we need to make a new appointment. We're supposed to make 2 appointments to the Capital Planning Committee. I believe that Michael was our only one. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So David Fuller has told me that he is willing to take Michael's place. So I will nominate Dave Fuller to be a Finance Committee appointee to the Capital Planning Committee. And I have a second.
I second.
I have a second. We'll now vote. Hal Pike, yes.
Marcia Meekins, yes.
Deborah Moran, yes.
And Michael Coward is saying yes. So we have unanimously appointed David Fuller. Is there anybody else on the committee that would like to be appointed to the Capital Planning Committee? Or alternatively, would like to go to the CPC committee, on which I'm the current representative? Okay, I think for the time being, for this meeting, we'll just leave it alone with David taking over for Michael on the Capital Planning Committee. And we'll talk more and discuss more about options. And again, trying to find somebody that's not on the Finance Committee, because you don't have to be a member of the Finance Committee to be appointed by the Finance Committee to the Capital Planning Committee. The next item I had was additional Finance Committee members. We now have our number 6 member here in Marcia. We're still looking for a 7th member. I just encourage all of us to continue to look, and for any of the public that's listening or on board, I see a lot of talk on Facebook about people getting more involved. Well, the Finance Committee is a good place to get involved if you're interested in budgets, if you're concerned with 10% annual budget increases, or you're concerned with big school increases, or if you don't like your tax bill that you received. A good place to start is on the Finance Committee. Last year, the Finance Committee voted against some of the things that eventually were passed. So I just encourage Anybody who wants to join the finance committee to get in touch with myself, Carl Pike, or Sean O'Brien, the appointing authority, our town moderator. The 2026 budget cycle planning. I have a couple of handouts here that I'll talk a bit through since we have members online. The first thing I have is the town administrator's schedule that I think most of us probably have. It's the schedule showing when he's meeting with the selectmen, when the finance committee meetings are, when the annual town meeting is, et cetera, et cetera. Remember, people, that the annual town meeting has been up to April 26th because of a few conflicts on the May date. The next thing I have is the schedule that I put together similar to last year, where I schedule the 8 meetings that we'll have between now and town meeting, including tonight's meeting, with the various departments, the various functions that we're going to have at various times. I've asked Keith to send this out to the department managers so they'll know what dates that the finance committee will be reviewing their budgets. This year, where we only had 5 members, one of the things that I have done is instead of trying to have 2 names from the finance committee on each department, I've put on the one person as the so-called finance committee leader for that department. Now that we have a new member, Marcia, I'll be working with her to assign her to work with Kyle perhaps on one, David maybe on another one, Michael on another one, etc. The other thing I've done, and for you people that are online and not seeing this, I'll send it out first thing tomorrow morning. So Mike and Deb, you'll get it. I was going to talk tonight about, making any changes, but we can defer that until you're actually present at a meeting. But when you get it, if there's any particular department that I've assigned to you and you say, oh, I really don't want to do that, let me know. Or if there's another one that you really want and I haven't assigned it, let me know that and we can make adjustments. The other thing I've done this year that's new is I have a second page where I just put down the kind of a general thing without dates saying finance committee responsibility. I'm going to read some of that off so that you'll have a better idea. Carl, revenue review and analysis, employee benefits, police, animal control, harbor master, treasurer, tax title, debt service, collector. I want to make sure that I take a tough look at that Ken Moali there, the collector treasurer. Hi, Ken. Mike, conservation, planning, council on aging, town clerk and elections and registration, selectmen, liability and property insurance. David, water department, wastewater department, accounting, assessing, revaluation, information technology, and the fire department. Derek, facilities, general operations, inspectional services, solid waste, streets, trees, and parks, and the historical commission. Deb, Board of Health, library, recreation department, human resources, and the wage and personnel board, and veteran services. All of us, the elected official salaries, local schools, Silver Lake Regional School District expenses and assessments, and the warrant articles. As you can probably tell, what I tried to do is group these departments where they're related. I tried to divide them up in a somewhat, equal workload type of thing. As far as I'm concerned, this year, if anybody wants to meet with a department manager in advance, great. If anybody feels it's not necessary, like last year, I didn't feel it was necessary to invite him to meet in advance with the police department. This year, with a new police chief, I will be meeting with him. The same thing goes with the other departments. So I leave that up to your judgment as to what you want to do. What I would encourage, though, is that if the department is assigned to you, that you look at the budget pages in advance, and you have, good idea of, what you agree with and what you might question, and come to the meeting prepared to ask questions, to answer any questions. As you know, I tend to try to look at everything, but I don't always look at it in the detail that I would hope you're looking at it. So without anybody here in person with two of us and maybe three of us remote, I think that it's best if we look at this in more detail once you have it in front of you. The next thing is the budget reviews for minor departments. Did you distribute, do we have that here?
Yeah.
Okay. Most of these, I think, are straightforward that we can go through, even though you're remote. Did we send the copies of these out to those people remotely? Okay, so yeah, I guess you have them anyhow. So from my schedule here, I'm not sure mine are in the right order. So the first one I'm going to do is the agricultural department. And that one is a $1,000 budget from last year, $1,000 budget for FY26, and they've spent $173.40. Last year, we tried to cut this back, and they came back with a concern. The town administrator is recommending the same $1,000. I don't have any problems with that. Does anybody have any questions or comments? I move that the Finance Committee recommend approval for the $1,000 budget for the Agricultural Commission.
A second.
Oops.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Kyle, yes.
Marcia Meekins, yes.
Tipper Moran, yes. And Michael sent a text saying yes. Oh, you probably see it.
400 recommended. The next one is the Cooperative Extension Services, which has to do with the county aid department. I know very little about. It's been $100 budget probably forever. I move that the Finance Committee recommend approval of the $100 budget for the Cooperative Extension Service.
I'll second.
We have a second. All in favor? Kyle, aye.
Marcia, I.
Tipper Moran, aye.
We recommend approval 400. The next department is the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee had a budget for 25 of $8,393. We have a proposed budget for this year or FY26 of $8,550. As we all know, the major portion of that $8,550 is for the secretarial administrative services that Rhonda so nicely provides for the department. Any questions? I move that the Finance Committee recommend approval for the Finance Committee budget of $8,550.
I second.
All in favor? Kyle, aye.
Marcia, I.
Debbie, I.
David, aye. Recommend approval of the Finance Committee budget 400. The next budget is the legal services budget of $165,000. It's been $165,000 from last year. This budget is, those of us have been around a while, was considerably higher for a few years, but the town administration has done a good job in getting the legal services budget, I think, under control. I think a lot of it is covered by annual contracts. Keith is recommending the budget be maintained at $165,000. Mr. Hickey, do you have any comments concerning it? Does anybody have any questions? I move that the Finance Committee recommend approval of the $165,000 legal services budget for FY 2026.
I second.
We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Marcia, I.
Debbie, I.
400. We've got recommend approval on that budget. The moderator's budget. Moderator's budget has been his salary of the grand sum of $100 as long as I've been involved. I recommend that the Finance Committee, I move that the Finance Committee recommend approval of the $100 moderator's budget.
I second.
We have a second. All in favor, say aye. Kyle Pike, aye.
Marcia Meekins, I.
Tipper Moran, I.
Michael says aye by motion. The next one is the reserve fund. As most of us know, the reserve fund is a fund that's maintained by, in effect, the Finance Committee for use of on an emergency basis. So, for instance, if there's a storm that does some damage that hasn't been budgeted, the department will come before the Finance Committee and ask for usage of this reserve. So this reserve is only used as authorized by the Finance Committee. For many years, it was at $100,000. It was reduced to $50,000 a couple of years ago. I think maybe it was at $75,000 at once. This past year, 2025, it was budgeted at $60,000. The town administrator, and I think I agree, is recommending that we keep it at the same $60,000. I personally, at one time, thought we needed $100,000, but it tended to become almost a slush fund that people were using, in things that I did not consider emergencies. So that I think that, at the $60,000 level, it just behooves us when we're reviewing these requests to make sure that, it in fact is an emergency. And one of the things I've always tried to do is stretch it out over the year so that I don't like using all of the $60,000, say in the first quarter, July, August, and September, and going bare bones with nothing for the rest of the year. That's my comment. Does Deb have any comment, or Mike?
I mean, I think we had talked about even eliminating the reserve funds. I mean, there's other reserve funds, correct?
Yeah, I don't think it's a good idea to eliminate it. Kyle Pike may have said at times that, hey, when somebody comes in and makes a request, I get tired of the request, and so I say, okay, let's just use up the fund. But I'm being facetious when I say that, so that my feeling is that 60,000 is a reasonable level. So I'm going to make a motion that the Finance Committee recommend approval of the reserve fund at the $60,000 that has been proposed by the town administration.
I second.
We have a second. All in favor? Kyle Pike, aye.
Marcia Meekins, I.
Debbie, I.
And Mike is checking aye. So we're recommending approval 400 for the reserve fund level. The next one is the sealer weights and measure. That was budgeted in 25 at $10,366. The actual in 24 was $10,183. The actual year to date is $5,729. And where the budget has been established at $10,558. What this budget is for is that we have a part-time sealer of weights and measure who goes to the gasoline stations and tests that the pumps are reading accurately, goes to, I think, the supermarkets or places like that, so that this is really 90% his salary and a few dollars for the mileage, the supplies that he needs on his job. I think this is an example of where I wish we'd see more of it across the town, that it's an expense that is minimized by sharing it in effect with other towns. This gentleman also works for a couple of other towns, so that we don't have to be paying a full-time or even a 50% time salary. Any questions? I move that the Finance Committee recommend approval of the sealer weights and measure FY26 proposed budget of $10,558.
I second.
All in favor? Kyle, aye.
Marcia Meekins, I.
Debbie, I'm sorry, I wasn't able to unmute quick enough. I just had a question. It looks like wages is going up. Is that it? So there's a 1.9% change.
That's the assumption, yes.
Is there a reason behind that? I thought there were these, I don't know, covered under contract, or what is it?
I think Keith, you can answer, but I believe it's a wage and personnel position, and it's probably got a 2% assumed increase coming through that.
Exactly correct.
Okay, that's fine. I'll, Debbie, I.
Okay, Mike said aye. All right, so we're recommending that approval at 400. Now, I had these, Keith, before I do these, I had these next three items on here.
Mhm.
Are you comfortable with us voting the snow and ice and the street lighting without having any input from the Sean or the department responsible, or have you got the input, so you've agreed these numbers with them?
So on two of the three budgets, I've got no problem, because what we're suggesting is the same amount that's been proposed by the departments. The one item, the one budget that I made a minor change on this afternoon was the street lighting. And I believe, I don't even know, so I'd ask, I guess, just to make sure I'm proposing the correct one. I believe I've cut the street lighting by $2,000 or $3,000. So if you, Carl, would be willing to just not vote on that this evening and put it on your next agenda, we'll make sure you get the right number, because I do believe I've modified that a small amount, but the zoning board and the snow and ice budgets, I'm bringing forward the same level as
Yeah.
proposed by the departments.
Okay, how about, can we get the street lighting, the actual number right now?
Sure.
How much did you want to use?
I think it's on that list.
Oh, it's
I,
on the list, then let's do it and get
okay,
it out.
that's fine. Yeah, no problem. If you want to do the other two,
Yeah, let's do the snow and ice. The snow and ice budget
let's see amount.
is budgeted at $161,080, which is, I'm sorry, $361,080, which is the same as the 2025 budget. The snow and ice is the one for Marcia's input here more than anybody. The snow and ice is the one budget that towns are allowed to overspend, and then it gets adjusted in the end.
Okay.
And you can't, it's an issue if you budget too much and you go forward and you want to reduce it, you can't reduce it. So that
You lose your ability to overexpend.
to overspend, exactly.
Okay.
So that what we try to do is pretty much stay the same year after year after year. We've been very fortunate. I want to say at least the last 2 fiscal years, we've had an underrun. And where one of these years, I'm sure we've had years when we'd spend $500,000, $600,000, $700,000.
Yeah.
So I'm going to move that the finance committee recommend approval of the snow and ice budget at $361,080 for FY '26, which is a level funding with the FY '25 budget.
I just have one question, I guess.
Sure.
I know we do a lot of subcontracting. Is, at least that's what I heard from the superintendent. Are those potential costs? Bill-
Equipment rental.
Where's that?
It's.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're
All
renting the
right.
guy's truck.
You're renting.
It's
I
probably
get
not a
that.
good name for
No,
that.
no, that makes
Yeah,
sense. I
it's
kept
not a good
saying,
name for that.
I didn't know if it was an overtime. All right,
Yeah.
that's, all right. That was
But
my only question.
I agree with you. Contractors is a
Yeah,
better name. for that.
that would be way better.
So I moved that we approve the 361,080. You're seconding it.
I am seconding it.
All in favor? I'm losing track here. All in favor of the $361,080? Kyle, yes.
Marcia Meekins, yes.
Debbie, yes.
Mike said yes. So we have 400 on snow and ice. We'll skip the street lighting.
It's 65, so I'm suggesting 65,000.
All right, so let's. The street lighting budget as proposed by the town administration and the department is $65,000. What the street lighting is that there's certain street lights in town that the town is responsible for paying for. But it's, I always kind of wonder, I guess if you have to have a street light on the corner of this building, you have another one at the corner somewhere, certain ones have to.
Everybody wants a street light, but
Yeah.
nobody wants to pay for
Yeah.
it.
So I have no concerns or further comments concerning the 65,000. Any questions, Marcia or?
No question.
Deb?
No, so I guess you're just gonna, because it says 68, so you're just changing it to 65?
That's correct.
Okay, I have no problem. Thank you.
Finance
Okay.
Committee, I move that the Finance Committee recommend approval of $65,000 as the street lighting budget for FY 26.
I second.
All in favor? Carl, I.
Marcia Meekins, I.
Debbie, I.
And I see Mike has checked up there to say aye. So street lighting, 400. The last one that we're gonna do tonight is the zoning board of appeals. And that's where, our current new member here actually sits as an,
No, thanks.
as a associate member on the zoning board of appeals. The zoning board of appeals budget is very similar to the finance committee budget. $8,000 is budgeted for the administrative secretarial position. $450 for the supplies on the department. And so it's been pretty much the same for years. The budget for current fiscal year is $8,293. The $8,450 is what's been asked for FY 26. Any comments or questions? I move that the Finance Committee recommend approval of $8,450 for the Zoning Board of Appeals FY 26 department budget.
I second.
All in favor? Carl, I.
Marcia Meekins, I.
Debbie, I.
And Michael has checked aye. So that's 400. That does it for the preliminary budget reviews tonight. The ones that I tentatively scheduled for next meeting 2 weeks from tonight are revenue. I will be sitting with Keith and Kathleen to understand or to at least take a look at what they have in there for the various revenues such as state aid, ambulance fees, automobile. In fact, I want to tell you people, I've just bought my wife another new automobile, so I'm contributing to the excise tax actuals.
I won't say why.
No.
Thank you for your contribution.
I'd like to try to do the water department and all of these is going to be contingent upon us actually having the town administration being at a point to give us the budgets.
So just I guess to let the finance committee know, I'm presenting the budgets, all of the budgets next Tuesday evening, the 14th of January, to the Board of Selectmen. They will include water and sewer. The only thing that I made this comment to department heads yesterday. I would suggest that, and I've suggested to the department heads of water and sewer that they provide something showing that the revenues that they estimate to be collected during the year can support the budget they're requesting. So ideally, it's a second set of eyes to make sure that we don't have the rate increases we've had over the last couple of months with water and sewer.
Okay, I'll reach out to Chris and David and say, hey.
I've asked.
You've asked, yeah,
Yep.
okay, but I'll reiterate
Thank you.
that, so we're going to try to do water and wastewater facilities, general operations. Do we even have that anymore? That used to be where the
Gasoline.
gasoline, it still is, okay. Inspection services, downstairs,
Mhm.
solid waste and street trees and parks. So that's kind of what I've targeted for the next meeting on the budgets. One of the things that on this schedule and people that are online will see that I had a little problem with is determining when I want to really say we're going to be reviewing the school budgets. I've got them pretty late in the process, which is the way it's always been. I may try to move it up a bit, but I really feel it's almost useless to try to do much of at least we can be reviewing school budgets all along, but to actually vote school budgets, it's almost impossible before March, that they just don't finalize enough before March to be able to do that. So that's something that's subject to change, and I'll be discussing with the schools before we get, that far down the road. What else? Oh, the minutes. We have minutes here for 3 recent meetings. And normally I'd say I want more time to review them, but these minutes, they're meetings that we held during the summer that were, the June 8th meeting was nothing more than line item transfers, pretty straightforward. The July 8th minutes were for a reserve fund, some reserve fund transfers and some minutes. So again, pretty straightforward. The July 15th meeting, another reserve fund transfer and another line item transfer. I've reviewed them. I have no problems with them. So I think that we can vote them. I would suggest that Marcia was not a member, so she's going to recuse herself from voting.
I can second it, or I approve too.
All right, so I'm gonna move that the minutes for the meetings of June 5th, July 8th, and July 15th be approved as presented by the administrative assistant. And we have a second from
I
Deb.
have a second. I second it.
All in favor? Kyle, aye.
Debbie, I.
Michael, aye. So we got 301 approving those sets of minutes. Okay, then the next item I'd like to discuss just a bit is as some of you know, some of you may not, the school administration presented the first pass of their elementary and intermediate school budgets to their local school committee on Monday night. Unfortunately, I had an important prior commitment that I couldn't go, but Keith was there and David Fuller represented the finance committee there. So that I have reviewed the package that was put together there, and I've prepared a 1-page summary that I think is what we really is all we need to focus on tonight, all we need to know. Marcia, for your information, the schools in total make up over 50% of the town budget, which I have to tell people over and over again is true in every town in Massachusetts and every city. What makes us a little bit different is we have to look at 2 pieces, is that we have a local school committee that determines the budget for the elementary and intermediate schools. And we have a regional school committee that determines the budget for the Silver Lake Regional School District, which is made up of the high school and, in effect, the junior high school. We call it the middle school? Yeah, we call it the middle school. And then that total budget is then allocated or assessed to the 3 towns. Kingston traditionally gets 52, 53, 54%. And the other 2 towns, Halifax and Plimpton, share the other 47% or thereabouts. I have always maintained that the review of the Silver Lake regional budget, I'm concerned at the bottom line expenses, that I look to measure and to review the total budget, irrespective of how that's getting allocated. Yes, we look at the allocation, look at the assessment, but we as a schools, as a town and as a school system has very little control over what's going to be assessed to Kingston, what's going to be assessed to the other two towns in any particular year. It comes down to a combination of things. Number one, what the relative student population is. So if the student population in grades 7 through 12 increases by 500 from Kingston and goes down by 300 from Halifax, there's going to be an impact. But that doesn't have a lot of control over the bottom line of what it costs them to educate the students. But I'm kind of getting ahead of myself because we won't be even talking about the regional school yet. What was presented to the local school committee on the, I have a one-page summary that I'll read most of it that Mike and Deb can probably understand, but we'll send you out copies in the morning. I just did this afternoon. The local schools budget for this past year was $14,568,000. The first pass of the local schools increase was $2,618,000. That's an 18% increase over last year. What they've been able to do is they are anticipating circuit breaker reimbursement of $254,000. And they've taken what they so-called tier 1 reductions of $58,000. Tier 1 reductions are minor items that they are willing to, the school administration is willing to say, we can make these reductions without much pain. A lot of times it's reducing ground maintenance by $1,000. In fact, there's a listing of what they really did in this report that you have. The biggest single item was the so-called excess para. They're going to reduce the para assistance by $25,000. The next biggest item was class supplies, $8,900. Furniture, $5,000. So these are almost wish list items that they had put in the budget. Now they're taking out. So what that does, it gets down to where they really are right now with a budget of $16,875,000 or an increase of $2,306,000 or 15.8%. So right now, what the school committee was presented on Monday night is a budget increase of $2,306,000 or 15.8% increase over the FY25 budget. Okay. Now from this, we compare it to what we as the finance committee and the board of selectmen recommended at the October meeting for a budget increase of 4%, which was $583,000 for the local schools. So that gets us back to the bottom line that they showed in their presentation of $1,723,419 as their quote unquote difference to be resolved. So the important thing that I want to get across here is that the true increase of the budget right now for the schools is 15.8%. We've asked for a 4% budget increase. So they're 12% above and beyond what we've asked for, or $1,723,000. Where it goes from now, I have no idea. But yes, I'm. Is it Deb that wants to has a question?
I'm sorry, did you ask me something?
Did you have a question or somebody have a question?
No, I don't.
Okay, I'm not taking any questions from anybody except members of the finance committee. That, this is a preliminary working budget. I'm not the expert on it. Any questions concerning this budget should be addressed direct to the school committee. It's their budget. So, that's all I have. I, am just presenting it tonight so that the finance committee members, we're all on the same wavelength, that it's a 15.8% request increase at this time. Needless to say, the town does not have the finances to cover that 15.8% increase. We all need to remember that the excess levy capacity that we had in this town for years of anywhere from $1 million to $2 million. I think a couple of years it was over $2 million, was basically used up last year, except for $700,000 or whatever thereabouts. And when I strongly encouraged the finance committee and the Board of Selectmen to target a bottom line FY26 budget increase of 4%, it was with the idea that 4% is what, with new growth, with the reserve that we had left over from last year, would allow us to move forward with no, I repeat, no excess levy capacity. If the bottom line budget is 4%, we will have eliminated excess levy capacity, which is done, and I have to admit, it's done in many towns. It's not a good way to manage finances, but needless to say, if there's going to be a school problem of $1.7 million or more, the only way to fund that is a Proposition 2.5 override. And that's what will have to be determined over the next couple of months, is if the town is going to go in that direction, or if the school's going to be able to find ways of reducing that $1.7 million problem. Any questions or comments from finance committee members? That being said, I don't think there's anything else on the agenda or anything else that I need to bring forward here. Keith, do you have any other questions for the finance committee or any
No, sir.
other suggestions? So with that, our next meeting is the 2 weeks from tonight, January 22nd. I assume right here in this room. With that, I'll take an motion for adjournment.
I move we adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Oh, I'm sorry, I second it.
All in favor of adjournment? Kyle, aye.
Marcia, aye.
Debbie, I.
Mike checks, Mark says aye. So the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.